Unfortunately, the Auburn Tigers will be without Jamonta Waller for the rest of the season.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day, or in this case, maybe your second listen. It's a bonus episode of the show. Sad news, Jamonta Waller, Auburn's freshman edge rusher, pass rusher, buck, whatever you want to call his position in this defense. News broken, I think it was Justin Hokanson was the first place I saw it, of On3, reporting that he will be missing the rest of the season with a foot injury, which is it's a bummer. It's a bummer, especially in a time where we were kind of talking about, okay, does Auburn pivot playing time and important reps to some of these younger guys just to give them a chance, to give them reps to prepare for the future? And I mean, admittedly, like, Waller hasn't been in the conversations when we've talked about some of these defensive guys, like when we talk about Malik Blocton and Amaris Williams. Jamonta Waller, he played 10 snaps against Alabama A&M in Auburn's opener, and that's been it. That's been it. And on 4 of those, he rushed the passer, and on 6 of them, Alabama A&M ran the ball, but he had like half of a tackle. I mean, this guy, it's not like he was playing a ton, but you hate it because you think about the future of what this program is, and it's these young guys, this freshman class and this true sophomore class or redshirt freshman class, depending on who played and who didn't a year ago. But you want these guys to get reps, even if it's not in a game. You want them to be developed by the training staff and workouts, and just get the reps in practice against opposing SEC players every day in practice at Auburn. And so Waller isn't going to get that, which is a bummer. That's a bummer, because you got to think, if Auburn wants to continue to rush the passer in the future, with Jalen McLeod being gone after the season, you're going to need certain guys to step up. And granted, like, I haven't been too impressed with Kieran Crawford, especially his ability to set the edge and have containment. Could Waller have been given some opportunities potentially down this stretch? Probably not, but you would have liked to have at least seen him, maybe hear some things in practice about, how Waller is coming along. So that won't be the case. So you certainly hate that, and you hate it more for the future than what like the rest of the season means. But still, Jamonta Waller, a guy that I think he was a 5-star on 247. I think it was the number 10 edge player according to 247 this past class. I mean, this is a guy who's got everything that you want in an edge rusher. He's just young. He hasn't developed yet as an SEC defender. And so this is one of those guys where, like, you hear bowl practices, if Auburn's able to make it to a bowl, which I'm not quite sold on yet, but it's these types of players that don't play a whole lot during their freshman season that start to get some play as far as more legitimate reps in practice, where you start hearing these reports come out of these and say, hey, like, this is a guy to watch going into spring next year. And so hopefully he's able to have a successful offseason. Hopefully this procedure that he's reportedly having on this injury to keep him out the rest of the year, hopefully he's good to go by the time offseason stuff starts, because they're going to need him this spring, just one as a body, but two from a depth standpoint, and maybe the upside of being a potential starter and a guy that's a key piece in the rotation, especially with Jalen McLeod leaving. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge, because, I mean, that tandem between Waller and Amaris, I mean, we've kind of all circled that and said, hey, if Auburn has an elite pass rush in a few years, that's going to be big. That's going to be big, because these guys, I think next year especially, even though you're losing Jalen McLeod, I think these guys are going to be set up to succeed in the future because of Keldrick Falk. I mean, Keldrick Falk has done everything that has been asked of him this offseason. And I was asking the questions at times this offseason, like, are we putting too much stock in the upside of Keldrick, what if he doesn't hit it? Well, that was an irrelevant question because he's hit every single box. He's checked them all off. He's been fantastic. And I think he's going to demand more attention from opposing offensive linemen next year than what J-Mac does and demands this year. So that whole position is going to be fascinating because Auburn's losing a lot. They're losing a lot. Let me pull up my depth chart here. But I mean, they're just filled with a ton of upperclassmen when you look at the edge situation with Jalen McLeod and Zacchaeus Walker, and then other guys that we've seen kind of move around the defensive line with Trill Carter, Philip Bleedy, Isaiah Rakes, Jason Jones. Like, they're just going to have to replace a lot. And I think when you have that many dudes, I think in the portal, which they're going to have to hit hard in December on the defensive line, we'd be interested to see if they get guys that can kind of do both. They could do the 3 technique and defensive end, kind of what we thought they were going to do with Philip Bleedy. How does that impact the pecking order if you get some older guys with 1 year left to play like they've done the last 2 portal cycles? How does that impact Amaris Williams, Jamonta Waller, and then Joe Phillips and all of this? I think it's interesting. I don't think it's major, but I do think it's worth asking the question. But yeah, Jamonta Waller only playing 10 games his freshman season. Of course, just playing in 1 game, that allows him to medically redshirt. So from an eligibility standpoint, it's not going to hurt him or his career, but it does like garner the question of, okay, what does this mean for his development? Because I don't think once Waller gets going, if he's the type of player that we think he's going to be, I don't think the eligibility situation is even going to come into play. If Waller comes in here and he's playing as a 5th-year senior, a redshirt senior, several years from now, something happened. He either like got hurt again, or he wasn't developed and coached in the right way, or in today's age of college football, he's probably not here. So I'm not like, I don't think the red shirt's a huge deal, but for his sake, you want him to have that option as long as possible. So it's a total bummer. It's a total bummer. You hate it for Jamonta Waller. And we'll see, hopefully hear some good news about him in the coming weeks or months. I'm sure Hugh Freeze will be asked about it at his presser next week. I want to discuss other things on the defensive line as far as like guys that I do want to see now that we've kind of got a little bit of clarity of like, Jamonta Waller will not be a younger player that we see after the bye week, but there still are plenty of guys that I do want to see. And that's coming up next, right here on Locked on Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time has you covered with all of the tickets that you could possibly want for the best price. In fact, they've got the price match guarantee. If you can find the same ticket that's in the same row or section cheaper somewhere else, they'll give you 110% of the difference. They are so confident that they are going to offer you the best tickets and the best prices on tickets around. They also have the all-in pricing. You can toggle this feature on and off, so you're not blown away. Why am I paying $80 because of all these fees for a ticket that costs $40? Nobody wants to do that. And so Game Time, they're not trying to hide that from you until the checkout, which I think is super, super cool. So it doesn't matter if it's for football, basketball, baseball, sports in general, concerts, the theater, comedy shows, they've got it all. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen. For your second listen, hey, I've started a national show here on the Locked On Podcast Network, so be sure to go check that out. Just go to the Locked On College Football feed, whether it's on YouTube or on audio. Just search Locked On College Football and the 3-point stance. I'm one of the hosts of that show, so be sure to check that out if you want some national college football goodness there. So Jamonta Waller out for the season, but who are some freshmen that we want to see more of specifically on the defensive front? And to me, you've got to look at Malik Blocton, who's kind of been one of the heroes up front. And at times he's looked like Auburn's best defensive lineman outside of Keldrick Falk during pretty significant stretches of gameplay. Would love to see more Malik Blocton moving forward. And I think we will. And, you love the guys that have come in. Philip Bleedy's had his moments. Isaiah Rakes has had his moments. Jason Jones has had his moments. But so has Malik Blocton. And now this coaching staff, in my opinion, they've got to balance the expectations of trying to win the games that they can now as well as preparing for the future. And you need to make sure all of these guys are happy. You need to make sure Malik Blocton is happy. Another guy that I'm interested to see is TJ Lindsey, a guy who hasn't gotten a whole lot of attention and discussion this year because, like Waller, he's played in one game, 10 snaps against Alabama A&M. So similar situations with TJ Lindsey. Could we see more of TJ Lindsey moving forward? My guess is no, but I would like to see it. I would like to see it moving forward. And then another guy is Amaris Williams. I've been pretty consistent with saying I want to see more Amaris Williams. He's played in just 4 games this year. He played a ton against Alabama A&M, 39 snaps, and then just played 5 snaps against Cal, 6 snaps against New Mexico, and 5 snaps against Oklahoma. Could we see more, excuse me, of Amaris Williams moving forward? I think so, and I hope so. I think so, and I hope so. And then obviously, other guys that you'll see around the defensive line is DeMarcus Riddick. DeMarcus Riddick has to have a role with the starters immediately. I thought we'd see more of him than we did earlier in the season, but we've seen a ton of them now. He played just 11 snaps against Alabama A&M, so pretty much the same amount as Jamonta Waller and TJ Lindsey. 8 snaps against Arkansas, 23 against Oklahoma, 36 against Georgia. And if you're playing 36 snaps against Georgia, you're going to be a part of it moving forward. So I think this is going to be a trend. I think we're going to see more and more of DeMarcus Riddick. And I think the deeper type of thing is like, where do we see DeMarcus Riddick line up? I mean, most of the time it's on the line of scrimmage at this point, which is super interesting, but he's getting the job done. I think DeMarcus Riddick is going to be him and Malik Blocton as far as your front 7 guys. It's true freshmen that need to be playing a bunch. That needs to continue to happen. For sure. So just wanted to hop on here for a few minutes and talk about the impact of the Jamonta Waller injury. You certainly hate it for him. It's bigger for him to get back as quick as possible so he can start prepping for his second season of college football. That's where you see the biggest jump and improvement from your first year to your second year. He needs to be healthy for as much of that as possible. So hopefully Auburn's training staff is all over that. And we see more Jamonta Waller moving forward. Once again, hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. Helps the channel out a ton. Closing in on 19,000 subscribers. Super, super cool of you guys for all of that. And we've got some basketball stuff coming up, if that's your cup of tea. Thank you so much. Please like it. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.